Hi, I'm Paul Duchesne, and welcome to Mama Paul's video podcast. Today is Monday, January the 11th, 2021. I want to correct two errors I made on the last show that I posted 2 nights ago on Saturday. I mentioned about the stock market's reaction to the rioting, and initially I said that they weren't interested in replacing riot gear, and then I came back the next night and said, well, wait a second, riot gear, warfare, Wall Street is very interested in this, as long as it's not in their own backyard, said I the other night. Well, Kel's surprise. So that was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I get the New York Times, which is what's posted in back of me. Most of these little posted in back of me are the New York Times from Sunday. And here, let me just put it up here. And it's, there we go. You got that? The market turns a blind eye to chaos. The market turns a blind eye to chaos. And this is Jeff Summers writing in the business section of the New York Times on Sunday, and he's saying that the rally that's going on right now simply reflects what he's saying is the greed of bullish investors. The greed of bullish investors, and he defines himself as one of the bullish investors. He goes on to say that there's five factors happening here. One is that interest rates are still incredibly low. So borrowing is at an all-time high, and people are literally borrowing all this money with no interest rates. The pandemic will eventually go away, and business will return to normal, and the pandemic is the main cause behind the distressing economic conditions. Fauci, I believe today, said that he thinks that Broadway shows will reopen in next fall. So that's a hopeful sign coming out of Fauci, which was well received by everybody. Number 3, he says that the economic stimulus, which Trump and the Republicans have been, that the chance of the economic stimulus increasing and getting to more people is very high under Biden, and that was the third positive factor. The fourth was that there won't be any sweeping changes going on, and the reason is that the Democrats have lost in the House and gained in the Senate, so they now have control of the Senate, but it's a 50-50 control, which means if 1 or 2 senators from one party crosses over to the other party, boom, there goes that 50-50. And historically, the Democrats have never, ever, ever been in as lockstep as the Republicans. And the Republicans have been pretty much in lockstep, other than, McCain's famous thumb down over the Obamacare a few years back. But other than that, and every so often Romney raises his head, or Murkowski, or a couple of people every so often, but they don't seem to affect the actual outcome of things in the Senate much. So that was number 3. And number 5, he's describing it as a Goldilocks moment, suggesting that Biden is going to rule as a centrist, keeping things pretty much as they've been going. The markets generally do well under the Democrats. The Democrats generally get rid of the deficit, keep the market steady, and the unemployment goes down. When the Republican gets in, historically, for the last, look back to the 80s, historically, the deficits increase, and we're always in worse shape when they get out of office. The minute the Democrat comes in is when suddenly the Republicans start screaming and yelling about deficits, which they have a blind ear to for almost 4 years now. Also, Biden and the Democrats will put the government back together, and it's been so disassembled that it's not operating efficiently. Lots of departments throughout transportation, housing, defense, they're not operating efficiently because he's put so many holes in these different sections by not replacing people, by moving offices out of the city, out of the state. So they're sensing that the efficiency will increase, which will be a good thing overall. So they're pretty happy with the situation that it is, and they're continuing with the boom that's going on in Wall Street. And let me remind you, the boom has been generated by the Fed basically pouring tons of money into these corporations. They've created a pyramid which I think I talked about a while back. They've created sort of a pyramid where they're literally lending, giving money to the banks, which are then lending it to the corporations, and then they're also giving some money directly to the corporations. The corporations then get the bank loan, gets forgiven, and they don't have to pay either one of these loans back. They've been getting tons of money in this pyramid scheme that's been going on, which seems to be going on unabated right now, and the chickens have got to come home to roost sooner or later. So anyway, what I was saying was, just when I think I have the whole thing figured out, that this is why it is and this is why it is, boom, I find out I'm wrong. So I admit I was wrong about that again, and I apologize for the error. You never know when you're going to get hit with new news. The other two headlines that were really, I think, striking to me was in back of me. We've got two of the headlines in back of us here. For Trump loyalty base, anti-democratic ideals and distrust still burn. That was the main one there. And if you didn't see the invasion coming, you weren't watching Michigan. If you didn't see the invasion coming, you weren't watching Michigan. Well, if you watch the Sunday talk shows the other day, Meet the Press specifically is what I usually watch. And Chris Todd had Mike Mulvaney on, and then later on he had Senator Toomey, I believe it's Toomey, Republican from Pennsylvania. Mike Mulvaney, who currently was the ambassador to Ireland, but he had been more of a chief of staff about 2 years ago. He was getting interviewed first, and then Toomey later on. Both of them basically said the same bloody thing. Now, Mulvaney said what happened on Wednesday was just different than what has happened before. He then went on to explain how when he worked with Donald Trump 2 years ago, this is Mulvaney talking about how Donald Trump was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Donald would sit down and he would listen to all his advisors. He would take information in and he would process it, and then he would come up with, his response. I don't know whether he's reading a comic book and making this stuff up or what, but he's saying what happened this week was different than anything that could have happened before. And it started with the election on November, when Trump disclaimed the fact that Biden won and he lost. Senator Toomey later on said the same thing. He said, you couldn't see it coming. I'm sitting there like, what? Both of these people, they can't see it coming? He then goes on to talk about how his administration, the Trump, has had lots of successes. And he rattles off, one or two things that happened. He didn't mention any of the negative things that have gone on at all. He mentioned one or two, things that everybody could agree with. He then went on to talk about the radicalization of the Democratic Party. Hello? The radicalization of the Democratic Party. And again, he repeated for about the fourth time there, nobody could have predicted it. Well, I don't need to do a whole lot of predicting. How did it come to this? I can pull out magazines, Our Crude President, a special report on how the Trump screwed up the pandemic response. One after another. If you start to look at the Trump's, you go back to Charlottesville, there's good people on both sides. This guy has been endorsing, supporting these Proud Boys, these right-wing extremists, these militants, and now lately this newest really lunatic group, the QAnon people. He's been supporting this all along. That is his base. 70 million people voted for him. Of the 70 million people that voted for him, about 20% of them, which is about 15 million people, are hardcore QAnon type folks. I'm being a little polite here. This is a dangerous situation. They are right now, as of today, threatening to storm the capitals in all of the states in a couple of weeks. The battle cry that they keep screaming is that it's the Antifa people that are out there doing most of this. Antifa, if you're not familiar, means anti-fascist. It was originally group goes back to the 20s and 30s in Germany when the fascists were starting to rise up. They eventually did and took over Germany, and they gave us World War II. So the fascists aren't exactly a group that we're all in favor of. So the anti-fascists are Antifa. Now they tend to be more on the order of the. I pulled up a couple of magazines the other day. The Adbusters and Yes magazine, and Adbusters is definitely more on the sometimes violently opposed to fascist techniques, which to me is sort of oxymoronic. If you're going to be violently opposed to the fascists who are violent, I mean, you're not going to win like that. The Yes magazine approach of a more measured approach and a more Gandhian look at things and a more Martin Luther Kingian a way to view things, it makes way more sense to me. Antifa was not there, and every report, which has been all over Fox News, every report about the Antifa people that infiltrated this mob have been completely disproved, even by the FBI. In fact, every time Antifa puts up people that they say are Antifa, they're not. They're these far-wing, right-wing extremists, which the FBI have in their files already. I think I've seen one flag that said Antifa on it, and it wasn't in Washington. It was, I think, actually, I'm not even going to say where it was. I saw it on a news show of TV about a week or so ago, and a half a dozen people had it peacefully marching, whatever the event was about. I can't keep up with all these events now. So that was the big one, as far as I was concerned. We couldn't see it coming. You know, everybody. We could go back and get New York Review of magazines from literally 4 years ago, which were starting to talk about the fascist tendencies within Trump and the whole administration. These people are out for power, and they don't care how they get it. That was one. The other one, which is I'm much more sympathetic to, was this woman here. For loyal Trump's base, anti-democratic ideals and distrust still burn. And she goes on to say in the article how basically they don't, she's fed up with the crooked politicians. She doesn't trust the Congress, and she has no respect for them. Well, where'd I go? Whoa, moved the camera and I flipped it around. I hope I didn't have it on too long. If not, I'll let it go. This distrust of the Congress and this fed up with the corruption, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. We have been fed up with the corruption for a long time. The left and the right come together at the extremes. Back in the 60s, when Goldwater was running, when it was Goldwater and McGovern, and literally after Goldwater lost, many of the Goldwater conservatives suddenly became McGovern liberals. At the extremes, the two groups, the two more radical groups, come together in a lot of their beliefs, and the progressives, as exemplified by the publishing of, say, Mother Jones and the Progressive magazine, and even This Week magazine, which I took down. The corruption is just endemic in the system, and it's been breaking apart the democracy. And the bigger issue that I wanted to address as we went along here had to do with the democracy and capitalism, and maybe we'll get back to that later. But the point is, the left and the right on the far end have both distrusted these. Now, to take up arms and attack the Congress, threaten to shoot people, threaten to guillotine people, threaten to hang people, walking in with portable handcuffs, this is a whole other level. Fox News is making out like these are the good guys that were just sort of, out there expressing their right of free speech. Well, this is not free speech. This is not free speech. There are dead people. The world is looking at us like we're the joke on the whole bloody planet. You've got Fox News bringing Sarah Palin is back on the news right now with garbage coming out of her mouth. I mean, there's stuff going on. People, Laura Ingalls, I was watching the other night, the guy that runs Newsmax. Oh, it was Antifa. Oh, Hillary this, Hillary. It's like the same old garbage. And if you remember I said the other day, the Benghazi hearings, and it was Darrell Issa, the California representative from down from the LA area, and he was on Fox News the other day, and he tells Fox News that throwing him throwing Trump off Twitter was like kicking him when he's down. And he goes on to talk about how Trump maybe misspoke. Whoa, is that a phone? Is that Darrell Issa? No. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Forget about it. No, I'm not doing calls this week. Goodbye. So this guy's talking about Trump misspoke at the rally. I didn't know this till I picked up till I read this. They had a big article about what Trump told supporters before the Capitol rampage. What Trump told supporters before the Capitol rampage. And it's another one of these things where they highlight in yellow the relevant items, and they point out what he actually did. He says, after the rally that they're doing, after this, we're going to walk down and I'll be there with you. We are going to the Capitol. We are going to the Capitol. We are going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness they need to take back our country. We're going to give the representatives, the Republicans that were going to vote against Biden, we're going to give them the boldness they need and the pride to take back our country. But I'm going to go with you. We're walking down there. Well, as soon as the we started walking down there, he went back to the White House, sat in his little TV cubbyhole there, and pretty much thought it was the greatest show on television. Literally thought it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen on TV. I mentioned the state capitol thing, and this was the FBI warning that insurrectionists are calling for insurrections at all 50 state capitals. And hardly, you can't make this stuff up. A while ago, it's almost 20 minutes now, when I first started this little series a long time ago, back in the spring when I first started this and the COVID thing broke, I brought out an article from Eric Whitney, Whitney Journal, Whitney Reader, and Eric Whitney had published a op-ed, and I don't have it in front of me, but just recapping it quickly, he basically was saying that back in the 60s, when we started protesting the Vietnam War, we didn't finish what we started. Interestingly, on one of the other talk shows later in the day, they were talking about democracy, and the comment made by the black commentator was that democracy is not 250 years old. Democracy in America is 55 years old, and democracy in America started when Johnson passed the Voting Rights Act back in 1966. That's when we started with a democracy. If black people couldn't vote, literally couldn't vote, Jim Crow laws were stopping them from voting, preventing them from voting, that was officially when they were allowed and legally protected to vote. Legally protected to vote. That's a big deal here. Women did get the vote, although the Equal Rights Amendment still, I believe, has not passed, but women did get the vote back a while back. But black people weren't protected until 1966. So I sort of can see where he's coming from when he says that our real democracy didn't start till 55 years ago. And it's 55 years ago when literally the prison industrial complex was created. Now, prior to that, we had the military industrial complex. Well, after Johnson signed off on the Voting Rights Act, we suddenly had, within a year, a military industrial complex. And I've talked about this before, too. The authorities started literally flooding black neighborhoods with drugs and then going in and arresting people for possession. So the dealers and the suppliers weren't getting arrested, but the users were getting arrested, and the prisons were getting filled with black people. The intent was to break up the family, to get the males out of the family, break up the family, destroy the whole community, incarcerate these guys, break up the family. We're the white guys on top of it, and we'll control this mass mob of anarchists who are fomenting below us. Well, the other interesting headline, I will hold this one up. This was in the review section of the paper. Black Power is here. And this goes back to talk about I suspect, the Georgia election, which has, at the very least, turned the Senate over. So I think that's the main issue that we're going to deal with. And let me get this one thing, and I'll bring it over here on this real quickly. The Capitalism Democracy poster is the one we're gonna deal with as we go along here, because the democracy is seriously threatened. And as I said over here, the Declaration of Independence and the Wealth of Nations were both. This was 1776. Capitalism and democracy have been welded together since the beginning, since the absolute beginning. And the inequalities within capitalism are antithetical to the natural equality within democracy. We're going to talk about this more. There's a whole lot more to say about this, but I just wanted to bring the board up there for a second. Not that this is a lighter note, but I'm going to move over to one more. Let's see, it's 22. Okay, we got a couple of minutes to do this. This had to be the. Whoa. Well, maybe this is not going to get up. I don't know. When the board starts collapsing, I don't know. This story just absolutely blew me out. Let's go over here. We can see it on the board here. A mother and daughter at the end, and these are the last two northern white rhinoceroses on Earth. The last two northern white rhinoceroses on Earth. And the reason is the male died about 2 years ago. And Sudan was the name of the last male. And he was the last male northern white rhinoceros on Earth. It was a grim climax of a conservation crisis that has been accelerating for many decades. The conservation crisis, the complete extinction of these horned rhinoceros is happening right now. The male is dead. His sperm was frozen. I'm not sure what they're doing with it, but that's the mother and daughter over here. So unless they get incestuous about this, I think that might be the end of the whole deal. Lastly, I said I was going to talk about the coconut oil problem I made the other day, and I did say the wrong thing about it, and I made a slight error. And what I'm doing now is I'm taking down the pictures, so I have a clean board in back of me, so we're not looking at all the same things again. I find it distracting. We'll see if this works or not. I don't know. We'll see if that works. Okay, so that's the truth about coconut oil. Let's put it up in the corner here for a second. Fred Rowe created. I gave a whole rap about Fred Rowe the other day, and I talked about how he started to market and merchandise the organic coconut oil. Not just coconut oil. He had a whole line of oils. He had olive oil, sesame oil, safflower oils, all sorts of oils. He had coconut oil, he had sesame oils, and he had what he called a cooking oil. And the cooking oil I'll show you what the cooking oil looks like. The cooking oil is, let's see, we get it on the full page here. This label, you won't believe this, this label goes back to the 90s, and I still have it. I took it off the bottle. I make a mixture, like I said the other day, I make about every month, I mix the coconut oil and the sesame oil together. They neutralize each other. The flavors neutralize each other. It's a real high temp cooking oil that you can use. It's very efficient and I think very healthy for you, in spite of what Jane Brody said in the paper the other day. A lot of the rap she gave, after I did some more research on this, and I had said something about laconic acid. Well, laconic means very few words used. There is an acid reflux that uses laconic acid in its description, but that's not what I was talking about at all. It's lauric acid, L-A-U-R-I-C. It's lauric acid. That's the acid that's in there. That is, according to Lena Berman, one of the key ingredients in the Alzheimer pills that they give to people. And that's why she gave it to her father, who improved greatly over a period of time. Now, there's a whole rap in here about the saturated fat issue with the coconut oil. Coconut oil is 87% saturated fat. Whether it's a long-chain fatty acid or a medium-chain fatty acid seems to be where the whole negative information comes from. And prior to Fred Rowe doing the research on this whole thing, the coconut oil had a really bad reputation because it was considered a long-chain fatty acid, and long-chain fatty acids don't go through your bloodstream real efficiently, and they wind up getting sort of stuck in the arteries. They clog your arteries, they increase cholesterol, blah, blah, blah. Well, I've been using coconut oil for 20 years now. My arteries are anything but clogged. My cholesterol is anything but high. I use it as my everyday cooking oil, and I consume about a teaspoon or a tablespoon every day, mostly as a brain booster. As far as the other claims go, when I looked, I Wikipedia'd the claims that were made in her article here, and almost every claim that was in there, in fact, she even hedges her bets on a few of these when she writes about it, if you're interested in reading it, was either questionable or inconclusive, or there wasn't enough studies about it. And her whole article is referring to the old research that was done, which was prior to Fred Rowe, and she's boosting it with one new researcher who's claiming that all this other news about coconut oil being good for you is false. Now, if any of you have followed the GMO argument for the last 20 plus years now almost, there are very few studies that prove that GMOs are deleterious. There are studies. There was the famous study in England when this whole thing first started, and what happened to the guy that did the study? He was shut up so badly he couldn't even talk for over a year. The studies were, let's put it this way, the studies were canned. The studies were canned, and then Monsanto and the other companies started to come in and do their own studies with their own doctors, and that's when they proclaimed that there was no problem with GMOs. Well, there's a lot of research out there that's been done by Jeffrey. Genetic Roulette is one of the books we have over there. There's about half a dozen books over there. We've done a lot of research on this. There's a tremendous amount of information in there about how when they genetically modify, they first of all put an antibiotic marker on the head of the gene that they're splicing with, so that they can identify it. So every time you're drinking any sodas or sugars or any of these things with GMOs in them, there's an antibiotic marker gene in there. Wonder why everybody's getting so resistant to antibiotics? Hello? The other thing that they do is it disrupts, when they splice it in, it's not just a smooth little, make a little nice little thing. It's very disruptive, and it causes other proteins to sort of change what you wouldn't expect. You get unintended consequences all the time. So we're finding out that there's a lot of problems with genetically modified food, much as there are with saturated fats, with hydrogenated oils. Remember, coconut oil is a naturally saturated fat. It is not like a hydrogenated oil. When they, in fact, what they're doing is they're telling you don't use the coconut oil, use their hydrogenated peanut oil and their hydrogenated canola oils. Well, when you hydrogenate oil, you add this hydrogen atom to the chain, and it really messes up, and causes basically a poisonous reaction, which is why people have such a deleterious response to fried foods and stuff that's done with all of these hydrogenated oils. So when you go to the health food store, you can't find hydrogenated oils. They're not there. That's why it's a health food store. If you go to the commercial supermarket, there's tons of hydrogenated oils. And there was a big dividing line there. So coconut oil, I still stand by it. I recommend it, and I wouldn't disparage it for anything. Let's get rid of the picture there. See if we remember to do that. Clear the board. There's nothing in back of me. I hope I didn't knock anything else over. And we're going to try to do 4 shows a week. I'm going to try to do a show on Monday and Tuesday, and either Friday and Saturday or Thursday and Friday. But I'm going to do 4 shows a week. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get used to putting a show together within a couple of hours so I don't have to script out the whole thing, which puts me down to 1 show a week if I'm lucky. So I'm trying to respond to the news, which is what I read every day. I listen to the shows at night. I listen to some of the radio. It's a mix between NPR and Thom Hartmann, and a little KPFA, a little Amy Goodman show thrown in now and then. But it's mostly mainstream media, which is the New York Times, that I spin off, because I believe that it is the gold standard of the news that's being spread around. It may not be everything you agree with. It may be all the news that's fit to spit, but it's all the news that's going out to everybody. So you start there with it. And when you find something in there, for instance, this article, oops, I took it down. It's not just the right wing, it's the left wing also. Now, they didn't get into that kind of a thing. That's where I'm at with this. Lots of magazines, newspapers. I'm trying to piece together a trend to see where we're going, and maybe we can figure out how we can make it a better place that we're going rather than where it looks like we're going right now. Well, that's a half hour more than. Peace, patience, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.